So, Final Fantasy III. Initially, I was tempted to play the 3D remake instead, because it supposedly has a better story and characters, but I decided to stick to the Pixel Remaster to keep consistency. Just look at the logo. This game belongs to John Fantasy, not some revisionist borderline fanfic characters. Also, I did play the original NES version with a fan translation many years ago, but I only lasted a couple of hours. I remember it being quite difficult. The original Final Fantasy III is probably one of the less ported mainline Final Fantasies, and a lot of these ports are Japanese only still. So it's definitely one of the lesser played games in the franchise. No need to waste time with overly long introductions, let's start playing. The first thing to do is naming our 4 new Heroes of Light, and as you can see, I'm being incredibly creative here. Also, and this is very relevant, but I accidentally left a space on that name and not on the others, and when I noticed, it started to torture me every single moment I was playing. The game's intro will seem immediately familiar. Crystals, monsters, and heroes of prophecy. We'll go through the introductory dungeon and face a boss at the end. Of course, everything is very simple because our characters can't really do much yet. After the boss is gone, our 4 heroes will find the first crystal and be given their quest. The power of the crystal will unlock the game's main mechanic, the job system. Unlike the first game where you had to pick jobs from the start, Final Fantasy III has a system that permits job switching, allowing you to customize the party at almost any place and any time. Now, not every Final Fantasy has a job selection system, but the jobs themselves would become one of the many emblematic parts of the franchise. This being the first time the system is introduced, there are a few rough spots, but we'll discuss them when we meet them. I ended up settling with the same configuration I had for the first game: Warrior, Monk, White Mage, and Black Mage. And I mostly stuck to the 2 fighters, 2 spellcasters group configuration for the whole game. What can I say, I'm traditional that way. Next, we can go into the kid's home in the town of Ur. But besides, you must go out and defeat the darkness, there is not much guidance on what to do or where to go next. You should still talk to everyone and explore. There are plenty of secrets and hidden chests to get you started. Also, similar to the previous games, spells are store-bought or found, and every character has limited space for them. Leaving the town and going further south, we'll enter Casus, where all the inhabitants are cursed but they can still talk. The key pieces of information are that Adjin is the one that created the curse and he can be contained by Mithril. He's hiding in a cave and the local princess might have some. Also, this game's seed is here and he will give us the location of his airship and permission to use it. There's actually a cave to the north, right inside the town, but that's not the cave the townsfolk were talking about, as I quickly found out by nearly getting destroyed. Also, I got another painful reminder that resting does not resurrect people. You need to find one of those magic fountains for that. As soon as we step on the sand outside town, we'll discover Sid's airship, and we can take that to go over the water and reach the actual cave. But before doing that, I went to check out the castle and maybe find the princess. The people of the castle are also cursed, and the princess is nowhere to be found, so going into the dungeon is the only move we have left. But don't forget to loot everything that is not nailed down. Once inside the sealed cave, I was horrified to learn that the monsters were really strong. So that means it's time to grind. This is not something I had to do often during the game. I would say Pixel Remaster has pretty good XP balance. Once I got strong enough to advance in the dungeon, eventually the team will find the princess and she tags along with us. Soon after we confront the Djinn and beat him quite easily. The princess uses the magic ring to seal him and we quickly return to the castle. After all that, the princess throws the ring into the spring inside the castle and the curse of the Djinn is broken. The king will reward us with the classic canoe that we can use to cross the water and retrieve the airship. As soon as we enter Casus again, we'll be joined by Sid. Go into the blacksmith's house to upgrade the airship so the map can open up. And also I can finally survive a trip to the mines for a couple of free mithril items. Don't forget to check all the shops for equipment and new magic spells. When we are ready, we can cross the mountains by destroying the big rock with the upgraded airship. Sadly, the airship is destroyed in the process. Entering the city of Canaan, Sid leaves the party and only says the very vague hint that we should speak to the King Argus for a new airship. First, we do what we always do in a new city and talk to everybody, check the stores and try to loot everything we can. We did get a couple of new tips from the NPCs that lead into the mountain to the south. And as soon as we enter, freaking Bahamut shows up. When we reach the top of the mountain, we're transported to the dragon's nest and inside we'll find Desh. Bahamut will attack and we're supposed to use the wrong command or we will not survive. After that, Desh will join and give us the spell Mini. Jumping from the mountain, we'll land close to a small forest where we'll find a gnome. And now comes one of the more controversial design decisions from this game. You see, during several parts you will be forced to use certain jobs or spells to open the way forward. To be fair, this only happens a handful of times and sometimes it can even be circumvented. Also, this version is way less punishing when it comes to job switching or difficulty in general. But still, the sudden loss of agency for the player rubs some people the wrong way. In this case, we need at least one white magic user to learn and use Mini in the party. This will allow entry to the gnome village of Tossus. Giving an antidote to the sick gnome will open the way to a tunnel. Note that, while in the mini state, all physical damage will be reduced to 1, so ideally you want to turn everyone into a spellcaster, but that seemed like a lot of effort, so I just persisted without changing my party configuration. Outside the cave, don't forget to reverse the mini status like I did. The entrance to the Viking's Cove is pretty close, and yes, apparently Viking is just another word for pirate in this universe. When we talk to the pirate boss, he claims that if we can defeat the sea monster, he will give away his ship. The problem being that the monster seems impossible to beat through normal means. To deal with this, we must go into the temple to the north and enter the dragon's eye socket by using the mini spell gimmick again. This dungeon is longer than the previous one and there's a boss at the end, so it's recommended to switch to an all-spellcaster party. But me, I just brute force my way with a single black mage. Not because I'm trying to be cool or anything, I'm just lazy and stubborn and I'm going to do this a lot in this game. With the Crystal Eye returned to the dragon, we are free to use the ship and go wherever we want. With our newfound freedom, the game turns into a where the fuck do I go, and of course I spent way too much time wandering around completely lost. To the west, Castle Argus was empty, To the south, in the town of Tokul, people claim to have been attacked by soldiers. There is also a forest full of fairies, a giant tree walking in the desert, and another town with pretty good shops. But none of them have solid hints to know what to do next. To the north we'll find the Tower of Owen, and it looks promising, but the way inside is closed without the spell frog. The key to everything is a cave to the west that is not really hidden, I'm just very crappy at exploring. Inside, the main blind guy will give us the frog spell and warns our buddy Dash that his destiny is in the tower. Finally, we can use the spell Toad in the same way we use Mini to enter the dungeon, except you have to undo the spell once you're in because frogs are pretty much useless. I'm going to take an extra second to praise the dungeon design because I consider it a major upgrade from the previous two games. Even the later, bigger dungeons are less annoying to traverse, with a couple of exceptions, of course. At the top of the tower, we'll confront Medusa, who name drops Chande. Final Fantasy XIV players might know where all of this is going. After beating the boss, Dash recovers his memories. He's actually an ancient, and his duty is to fix the tower, so he throws himself into the reactor and gives a hint on where to find the fire crystal. We can see a tiny cinematic showing that a new way has been opened and we can travel to the land of the dwarves. Speaking to the NPCs there, we get the picture. The Horn of Ice has been stolen and the entrance to the next dungeon is right there inside the city. We just need to use the frog spell again. At the end, we'll fight the thief Gutsko and recover the horn. But in a surprise twist, when we go return the treasure, Gutsko sneaks in and steals both horns. Now we have to rush into the molten cave to stop him. In the cave, strangely enough, we can walk through lava without receiving damage. When we reach the crystal room, good old Gutsko will turn into Salamander for a boss fight. It seems that the consensus is that this boss is the first sudden difficulty spike of the game. The constant barrage of flame was a real surprise and really hard to handle. I was able to take him down on the second try, but I feel I did get a lucky break from his RNG. With that done, we can get the new Crystal's Blessing and unlock 4 new jobs. To be completely frank, most jobs are either straight upgrades of other jobs or one-trick ponies for very specific uses that I would never choose unless running some kind of challenge run. While the Pixel Remaster does buff some of the useless jobs, it doesn't really change things significantly. Future games in the franchise will implement more solid systems that add things like skill sharing between jobs, but we are a couple of games away from all of that. Entering the dwarf cave again will get the least subtle hint I have ever seen. And you know what? Thank you for that. Be sure to save, and the next time we enter Tokul, we are going to be ambushed and sent to jail. Inside, we finally meet King Argus, and we can escape by using the mini spell once again. Now, up to this point, a lot of NPCs have been dropping not so subtle hints that the following boss changes his weak spots, and the only way to anticipate that is by using the Scholar job to identify the correct element. The only problem is that sometimes the timing is going to be really off, and you will scan the boss only for him to barrier shift right after, making you waste the whole round. But even with that, the boss is way more lenient here than in other incarnations. You could realistically just overpower him. After Heinz's defeat, the Elder Tree will let everyone go and return to his forest. And we can finally walk into Castle Argus and visit the king to receive a key item for Sid. Also, I just got this huge lore drop that our continent is actually floating in the air and there's a whole world below. And this was said by a random NPC that I just decided to talk to. One would think that was a key detail. Maybe I missed an important dialogue somewhere. With the new item, we can return to sea and upgrade the ship into an airship. There's a new town we haven't been to yet with new spells and items like the magic key that will be useful if we don't want to play a thief. And after that, I just don't know. It legitimately took like 40 minutes for me to even attempt to fly outside the map boundaries. Not exactly my proudest moment, but at least there's a whole new world to explore. Well, I say new world, but there's actually very few places to visit, because the earthquake from the game's intro has covered most of the surface with water. And of course, with my flawless luck and sense of direction, I picked the temple first, but we cannot advance without the help from the Priestess of Water. Thankfully, it's difficult to get lost now. Far to the north, we can enter a wrecked ship. Inside is the girl we need. Apparently, an antidote is more than enough to wake her up, but I gave her an elixir because I'm an idiot. With Arya following us, we can make it to the end of the temple. In front of the water crystal, an arrow hits the girl and Kraken starts a boss fight. After defeating him, we'll get the powers of the crystal, unlocking 4 more jobs. Arya passes away and another earthquake occurs, lowering the water level and restoring the world. We wake up on a bed and strangely enough, the world and all the inhabitants seem to be no worse for wear. The excuse is that during the flood everyone was magically turned to stone and their memories conveniently erased. Now it's time to do the usual and interrogate every NPC for clues. To recover control of our ship, we need to defeat Goldor, and to get to his mansion, we need a special pair of shoes. Before continuing, I changed a few classes. I turned the Knight into a Viking, which is arguably the best physical tank of the game because of his high defense and ability to taunt. And I turned my Monk into a Black Belt. This class is just a monk with an AoE and a damage buff, so it's a no-brainer really. To continue with the quest, we find an old man that will open the way to the sewers for us. Once inside, we will save the fake Warriors of Light and they will become our friends. At the end, they'll help us get the correct shoes. With that taken care of, the party can go to the next dungeon, but I got lost trying to get there. So lost, in fact, I died. Well, eventually I made it to the mansion. We are going to need magic keys or a thief character to open all the closed doors. Also, make sure to explore the whole thing because there's plenty of valuable loot that is made just to sell. Eventually, we will open the correct door that will reveal the path to the boss. After defeating Goldor, we'll get the key to regain control of the airship, but it seems his crystal was fake. Now the world opens up, and of course I'm going to spare you from all my aimless wandering. I have no idea if I did every important event in the correct order, but it worked at the end. When we take the airship to the big castle to the northwest, we'll be shot down by cannons, and we are effectively trapped in this zone until we solve the conflict of this kingdom. The map is actually pretty big, as the city is divided in several parts. After we explore and do, the thing, we will know we have to find the missing prince. He's in one of the bars, and we have to help him in a fight. With the prince in our party, we'll be allowed to enter the castle. But at night, a mind-control king enters the room planning to kill the prince. When we intervene, we'll be attacked by Garuda. This is the next gimmick boss that is supposed to be fought with dragoons in the party. His constant AoE is nearly impossible to survive normally, so you have to avoid it with the jump command. NPCs in town hint at this, but I'm stubborn and still try to tough it out. And after I failed, I spent all my money buying dragoon supplies for my 4 dudes. But a 4 dragoon party died too, Virtue of just poor timing when landing the jump attack, I guess. I had to try a third time with 2 dragoons and my 2 casters to finally beat this one. Spending all that money was a waste because in the southeastern part of Saronia, there is a tower with enemies to train and free dragoon loot that I completely missed my first time through. After the battle, the king dies and Prince Alus becomes the new ruler. Don't forget to loot everything in the castle before leaving. On our way out, we are given a new airship that can reach new places, the Nautilus. Next, we are going into the narrow space between mountains in the South Continent. In a very annoying twist, this is going to trigger random encounters in the air. Entering the manor, we'll be attacked by the first official appearance of Muggles. But Doga steps in and quickly recognizes that we are the Warriors of Light, and then explains the whole backstory. Our buddy Shande got really mad at not getting a good present, so he provoked the Great Earthquake. The next objective is the Cave of the Circle. We have to go to the bottom of the manor and use the mini spell again. At the end, Doga will enchant the airship so it can go underwater and gives us the quest to find the magic loot to wake Unei, the second disciple. In true me fashion, I entered the wrong underwater cave and got a swift Sansetsuken in the face for all my troubles. I'll come back for revenge later. Finding the correct entrance to the dungeon was not that hard. Also, I do recommend that you go get a few magic keys because there are plenty of closed doors, including the one that leads to the loot. Thankfully, Unei's resting place is not another dungeon. After using the loot, she will join the party. We'll receive a new elemental fang and our next mission. We need to find a new, stronger airship. The next step is going into the ancient ruins, and with Unei's help, the rocks blocking the way can be destroyed. Further in, we'll find stores and an inn to rest. And that's weird and all, but the highlight of this dungeon are the infamous self-replicating enemies. The intended way to destroy them is by using the Dark Knight class. But I did not understand this when I played this section for the first time. Instead, I relied on magic and carefully manipulating the battlefield to kill all the mobs in a single turn. I don't know if I should consider myself smarter or stupider for doing this. But anyway, at the end of the dungeon, we'll get control of a massive airship that has its own inn and stores right inside for convenience. You can even summon the Fat Chocobo here. I didn't mention it before, but the Fat Chocobo just functions as a bank. But on this version, the inventory space is so big, you're never going to need to store items on him. After giving us the tour, Unei leaves the party, and the next objective is taking the Fang of Earth from the Cave of Shadows. Using the Invincible's skill to jump over mountains is the only way to get there. This new dungeon is another where you should be using Dark Knights to overcome the replicating enemies, and the game is not shy about spelling it out for you. But I kept insisting with my superior firepower and strategic mind. Before taking the Fang, we'll have to face a boss, the Hecatoncheires! With the Fang in our possession, we have to return to Doga and Unei's manor. This little mountain jumping section with the airship, it's really irritating, by the way. And talking about annoying, you can't actually enter the road to Doga's manor with the new airship, so you have to go all the way back to where you parked the Nautilus. As soon as we enter Doga's manor, we'll be teleported to a new dungeon. At the end, we are hit with a twist. We must battle Doga and Unei to the death to create the final key to unlock the Crystal Tower. It kinda makes little sense, not gonna lie. With every important item in our possession, we can finally break all protections and get near the Crystal Tower. Before we can enter the tower proper, we need to make our way through the Labyrinth of the Ancients. Final Fantasy XIV players probably took some psychic damage from hearing that. If you know, you know. Right at the entrance, we can find the final crystal, but we'll have to battle Titan for it. is a reskin from the previous boss. That's kinda lazy, guys. With the powers of the new crystal, we get a new batch of jobs. The first order of business for me was upgrading the black mage to a magus and the white mage to a devout. Now is as good a time as any to use this little technique that allows you to train job levels fast. Just go to a place with weak enemies, press defense for 5 turns and then kill the enemies. This will guarantee a job level up. Using this method, you can power level jobs relatively quickly. Now, before we set foot on the final dungeon, it's time to mop up some unfinished business. First, our friend Odin needs to be put on his place. Then I return to the floating continent and go after Leviathan, using the invincible to get near the shadow on the water. Funnily enough, this lands the group in a mini dungeon where Leviathan is waiting at the end. After that, we can use the same trick with the airship to access this cave, which is called Bahamut's Lair, so you know what's at the end. After the boss battle, we'll get the summon spell. Why am I collecting summons if I don't use summoners? Well, that comes later. There's also a couple of places I neglected to visit before. There's this Dark Knight village with a small dungeon inside. It only has a few items to collect. And another town where they sell every spell in a single place. Very convenient. It's time to enter the final stretch of the game. The Ancient's Maze is pretty long and with an annoying layout that makes me remember dungeons from the other games. You know, the bad ones. When we reach the little exit, we can do a hard save on that spot on the world map. This is a really good time to mention that the original Final Fantasy III was infamous for not having save points during the final section of the game, making the end a brutal test of endurance. According to the legends, a game tester called Suzuki mocked the final dungeon for being too easy, which prompted Sakaguchi himself to get annoyed and remove the save points. The only source I could find was this old Japanese article, and the guys at Final Fantasy Union also said it. It's on the internet, so it must be true. Now, the first time I went through the Crystal Tower, I missed the entrance to Eureka. You shouldn't do that. Eureka has very valuable loot protected by mini-bosses, and more importantly, the final class unlocks the Sage and the Ninja. The ninja is the ultimate physical fighter that can equip almost anything and can also throw shurikens. And the sage is the ultimate magic character that can use white, black, and summon magics. The only disadvantage being that it doesn't have as many spell slots per level. The final room also has a store that sells all the highest level magic and other stuff. Now you see, I'm insane, so I teleported out to go to the training cave and level all these new jobs a little bit. A 2 ninja, 2 sage setup is probably the most boilerplate for the final section of the game. I know I am not winning points for originality here. Now, finally, we are playing until the end. At the top of the tower, the heroes will be stopped by a trap. When all seems lost, Doga's Force Ghost will show up and bring help. With the power of friendship, we manage to escape and face Chandy. He'll go down easily enough, but in yet another twist, the Cloud of Darkness shows up and one-shots the team. The power of friendship intervenes once again, restoring the heroes of light and opening up the way to the final dungeon, the World of Darkness. This is the point of no return, so we keep moving forward. The idea here is to confront the 4 bosses guarding the 4 dark crystals, so that the Cloud of Darkness loses power. After defeating a boss and releasing the Warrior of Darkness, you can use the crystal as a full heal, making the dungeon way easier than the original. The only boss that is kinda problematic is the two-headed dragon that uses the complex strategy of killing anyone in a single hit. Once the 4 crystals have been interacted with, we can take the central road to confront the Cloud of Darkness. And I have to say, all she ever does is particle beam. It's kinda disappointing. After she goes down, we'll get a poetic text scroll about light and hope. Then we will slowly return all our dear friends where they belong, and we'll finally arrive back at our hometown. The crystals will shine with renewed power, and a new dawn starts. And that's it. Final Fantasy III is done. And it's probably the most solid of the NES trilogy, at least on the game design part. Dungeons are better, progression systems are better, maps are better, the world in general is better. Also, this one feels closer to what the following generations of Final Fantasy games would become. The only kind of people I can see not thinking the same are, for the lack of a better term, story elitists. You know, people that are disappointed that Square decided not to follow the extremely ambitious Final Fantasy II style of storytelling. The game was still full of charm and personality, and that was enough for me to continue playing. And I know the current internet discourse usually uses the word whimsy to excuse really bad stuff, but in this case I think it would be using it correctly. Also, as usual, I have to mention the music. All of the 3 games are good, as I have said before, but on Final Fantasy III there are way more bangers than in the previous ones. Like, stop and listen to the music kind of good. My favorites being the boss battle theme, and of course Eternal Wind. Final Fantasy was a big part of my formative years, and it's a bit shameful I waited this long to play the first trio. Better late than never, I guess. I hope you enjoyed the trip. See you on the next one.